Hello and welcome to another lecture in the course of short story. And today we are going to go beyond the threshold of Old Man and the Sea. We are going to move on within the novel and see some interesting and important aspects in this novel. By the way, I should notify the audience here or those who are watching this lecture that this lecture is aimed for undergraduate students, and it is not for professional or postgraduate or higher studies in English literature. So let's move on, and today we will talk about some important universal aspects of this novel, some important points that are shared in all the worlds in the modern age. So, Universalism of Old Man and the Sea. This novella displays certain universal aspects that are shared in all times and places in the modern age. Two of the most important ones are economic universalism and social universalism. So, we are going to talk about two features, two aspects that are universal in this piece of work, in this novella, which are economic universalism and social universalism. As for economic universalism, by the way, I should notify that this novel was written in a time where when the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States was at its peak and its climax. At the time, these two poles of power were struggling for economic prevailing and domination. That's why we see this highlighting of economic aspect in this novel is so dominant and so clear and obvious and can be diagnosed easily by the reader. So the novella does reflect a universal pattern of socio-economic change familiar even today among developing nations. In rural Cuba of the 1930s and 1940s, the traditional fishing culture, insulated and isolated from the industrialized world, closely connected to nature, bereft of modern technology and bound to extended families and tightly knit communities, began shifting to the material progress of a fishing industry dependent on the industrial world for its livelihood, environmentally obvious or negligent, increasingly reliant on mechanized methods to ensure profit, and much less bound to extended families and local communities. In The Old Man at the Sea, Hemingway depicts Santiago as a dedicated fisherman whose craft is integral to his own identity, his code of behavior, and nature's order. On the other hand, Hemingway portrays the pragmatic younger fisherman as those who supply shark livers for the cod liver oil industry in the United States, use the profits to purchase motorized boats and other mechanized equipment, and approach their fishing strictly as a means to improve their material circumstances. This is really interesting because here we find that Hemingway tends to make a comparison between the traditional way of fishing, the traditional lifestyle of those fishermen, and the modernized way of these guys, of these fishermen. The old man, he tries to stick to his old methods with his simple and undeveloped boat and his traditional old school style of fishing. And on the other hand, we have that young man who tries to be more modernized, more updated. He uses more modern methods in fishing, and of course here we see this economic struggle that they are deprived of their own wages, of their own products that they produce and that they fish in the sea. That's why they sell their own products, their own hard work to larger communities and industries, only to get some little profits from their own works and jobs and what they do. That's why this is an economic struggle over the products, over the wages. And here we see that, of course, always the pragmatic younger fishermen, they who are more modernized, who are more updated, they always win the game and they dominate the arena, the field of the game. And another aspect of universalism is cultural universalism. The novella is truly universal in its consideration of the plight of an old man struggling against age, poverty, loneliness, and mortality to maintain his identity and dignity, reestablish his reputation in the community, and ensure for all time his relationship with those he loves and to whom he hopes to pass on everything he values most. Ultimately, Santiago's heroic struggle not only redeems himself, but inspires and spiritually enriches those around him. So we see the degeneration, we see the backwardness of the morality of a society, and we see this old man Santiago. He is the only straight person in the novella who always tried to stick to his old style, old school ways of life, of his own methods of life, of his morality, of his good old days, and so on. So he tends to maintain his own identity, dignity, and reputation in the community, and he tries to be so determined and to prove himself in the society that he still maintains power and determinism. So this is the cultural universalism, the moral value we can say in this novella, which is surrounded and maintained and performed or practiced by Santiago the old man. So these two features are the most important universal factors in this novel, and in the coming lectures we will move on to other features and characteristics of this novel. So please stay tuned and have a nice time. Bye bye.